All right, welcome to the newest Path of Exile in-game boss. Are you ready for it? Because it's like this with worst movement. All right, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. So we're going to be going over the Eater of Worlds as well as the Searing Exarch. We're going to start with the Eater of Worlds, which has a life total of 38,995,520, armor of 16,265, evasion of 8,120, energy shield of 38,995,520, damage base of 3,716, accuracy of 538, and attack time of 1.01. This is my favorite of the two bosses. The nuke, which is the big ability that will not be showcased here as I did not experience it in this playthrough, does 72,482 to 108,723 cold and lightning damage. It always shocks, always freezes, is it has 1,000% reduced block and dodge chance, so it will kill you as long as you are in range. Now, the hunger has two effects. It has two different slams it can be. It can either be the simple slam or the double slam. If it is the simple slam, it is 7,188 damage to 21,565. It is pure lightning, and it also has a 475 more attack damage multiplier. The further away from the slam, the less damage you do take, as it is a AoE. Now, the Withering Mask is a tentacle. So the tentacles, the base damage of them has 0 crit chance, which is very important. And it does 75% fizz to lightning with a 75% more attack damage multiplier. There is also a huge tentacle slam, which is 75% fizz to lightning, as well as 190% more attack damage multiplier. There is also a beam, which I will put on screen here as soon as it happens. Very important with the hunger is there is two different voice lines. One that just says hunger, one that has hunger and a laugh. That is how you tell the difference. And as you can see, your best bet is just to stay very far away. So you'll notice that I switched up from Absolution to Skelly Mages. It was after doing this first one. This is the second attempt on this. First attempt was with my buddy Orange. We decided just to play it and see what happened. There's that beam with the voice line of Succumb. And the orbs is what we messed up on when we did it the first time. Inescapable Doom. So this is the pre-nuke phase. So what you're going to do here is run into these little celestial orbs until they turn white in the middle. They do have like a little flash as well. Once you see that flash, you're good to go. As long as you do all of them, he will go into a default attack. If you do not hit all of them, he will nuke the screen. So just go as far away from wherever the Eater of Worlds is positioned. Go to the absolute opposite corner. Is your only hope of survival. Otherwise, you will just die. The other important part about this, I was talking about with the Absolution. So I wanted more mobility than what Absolution offered for these boss fights because they are mechanically intense. And I'd already heard like rumblings that the other one was worse than this one. And I was just like, oh God. And so I didn't want to deal with it. So I switched over to Skelly Mages for these. I more than likely will switch back to Absolution after I've done a couple of these and feel a little bit more comfortable with them. And you don't really want to do both, right? You don't really want to do Skelly Mages and Absolution, even though that might not be like the worst scenario, as Skelly Mages do clear very well, and you could always put those in your chest. If you do decide that you want to do both, it is, just to forewarn you, a lot of minion management. You can absolutely do that. I would basically just run Carrying Golem as my additional minion, though. I wouldn't worry about zombies if you are going to go that route. Animate Guardian is also fine. Basically things that you're just going to cast once and not have to worry about managing, I think are fine. If you do want to still play Absolution and maybe have a little more going on, you would also have better clear speed. And nothing really out of the ordinary on this. I do have a +2 helm. And on the Skelly Mages for this fight have Volley and Pierce, because I didn't know if we were going... I knew that we weren't going to have ads, but I didn't think to change them around. I do make some gem changes when doing the Searing Exarch just to get more damage out. So this is kind of a very low damage version of Skelly Mages. I also don't have +1 weapon or amulet or anything like that, which would be essentially holding, giving us extra damage. I don't have any of that going on. So just something to be aware of. Now that is the drowning effect. So basically the screen will compass black all the way around. I never let it get all the way down. I always moved out of it ahead of time. But it is something you want to kind of be aware of. As the name of the mechanic is drown, I'm assuming if it gets to 0, it will kill you. I never experienced that, but I think that's a pretty safe assumption considering it's called drown. And as you can tell, I kind of just stay off screen from the boss basically at all times. I would say this boss fight would be significantly harder if you were playing melee or something where you're having to self-cast. Seems significantly worse for these kind of fights. So I'm very glad I went with the minion option. And then for those spheres that are walking around, they do have a little bit of a slow attached to them, but I wasn't able to get any damage numbers for them. So they may just literally apply a debuff, but I wasn't able to find any damage numbers regarding to those orbs themselves. The big thing with this one is really just to not be hit by anything of these bosses. I do take the edge of a slam there, and I got lucky because I took the edge of it, and it still basically completely depleted my energy shield. Which is, basically 2,000 raw damage that I would have taken. Post resistances. I am at 75, 80, 75 for resistances, as I do have an Aegis Aurora. But yeah, the boss fight at this point, if you've gone to this far, it's basically just rinse and repeat. Don't worry if your damage is low. Your damage will get better as the league progresses and as you get gear upgrades. This is not what I would call budget for everybody, but it's definitely in the realm of fairly reasonable budget gear with the +2 helm. Most of my gear is self-crafted. I made the flesh crafter, I bought the flesh crafter chest for, I want to say 1520C here in just a moment. To start off with, the Searing Exarch has 38,995,520 life, 16,265 armor, 12,180 evasion, 19,915,569 energy shield. The base damage is also 3,716. The accuracy is 538 and the attack time is 1.01. His base dash, which I believe is the very first attack that comes out. Yeah, the base dash is 25% less attack damage, 200% more damage, and 75 fizz to fire. Then for the flame wall, which should happen here in just a second, he casts that pretty often. That is 7,122 damage to 10,000 683 fire damage. It does always ignite, and it can repeat 4, 8, or 16 times, just depending on which phase of the fight you are in. It starts off at 4, then goes to 8, then stays at 16. The moving flame wall, which is another mechanic of the flame wall, deals 1,402 to 2,102 fire damage. It does not always ignite, which is nice. Then the Annihilation Beam, I will put stats up for that because I don't have that readily available at the time. But it's not too terribly bad. The Annihilation Beam isn't. You basically still just want to avoid it. And you can avoid it just by running around in a circle like you see me doing over and over again. Incineration. So this is his nuke. I did not know that at the time, as this is my first playthrough. So that does 17,029 to 25,543 fire damage. And it also reduces by 1,000% your chance to block and dodge. So just like the Eater of Worlds nukes, except for this one is not readily preventable, where the Eater of World one is. So you are going to have to deal with that. It does also have a fire trail basically on the ground, as you can see here. And you just want to avoid that fire trail. Then we're almost to the fun phase of this fight and the intro joke reasoning for this. Also, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It does really help the channel out, and it does help me grow. Before we get into the fun of Bullet Hell and Path of Exile. So here's the Bullet Hell phase. And I do mean Bullet Hell, like R-type Bullet Hell. So there's these little rolling meteors that you have to avoid. Maven will shoot out pieces of it. It does slow you, and you have to manage if you're using Flame Dash or Dash. Oh, quick clip. Did you notice what spell he was casting? Because that's about to be impactful. Ready for it? It was Incinerator. So if you die during this fight, stay dead. Just stay dead. Make sure it's not Incinerator, so that doesn't happen to you, because that's kind of a negative experience. Then on this part, basically the rest of the mechanics are fine. I basically got them figured out. Now I have Incinerator figured out. I have the everything other than the Bullet Hell figured out. Kind of my only complaint about the Bullet Hell is they did the cardinal sin of Bullet Hell, which is if you want to have a bad Bullet Hell game, you have bad movement. And they have bad movement and Bullet Hell together in the exact same fight. And that just typically is a recipe for disaster for most people. Most people do not have Mathel reflexes. I assume Mathel actually really enjoys this fight because he has insane reflexes. So if you have great reflexes, you will probably really enjoy this fight. If you don't have insane reflexes, you may have a very similar experience to me and really not be particularly fond of this fight. Now, the other things that can help if you do not have the best of reflexes is you could always run Juggernaut, which will make your move speed a little bit better, or any Marauder and use the gems to get the move speed from Juggernaut with the new changes, or a Scion and get the penalty reduced that way. So those are some options. Another option to doing this would be Combs Roots. However, Combs Roots does make your mobility naturally worse, so you will be even more reliant on movement skills than this boss fight already is. So kind of take that what you will. Now, this boss fight seems to be much more melee friendly than the Eater of Worlds is. I haven't personally tested it, but this seems like something like the accuracy stacking lightning strike Juggernaut that I did last league would be pretty good at this boss fight, just because it had very, very good mobility. The only thing I would worry about with it is the mobility might be too much. and it might cause problems. But the reason for the slows is the little circle things on the ground. Those cause a slowing effect. So you can avoid those, and it seems like if you dash diagonally, which is kind of counterintuitive to how we have always dashed in this game. But if you dash diagonally, it seems like you would have better results than if you dash straight ahead. Just as a forewarning of learning from my mistakes, because you can always learn from the mistakes of others. This was blind, so this is 100% organic. My first playthrough. It does not go according to plan, but good news is I do have a second playthrough that I will pull up where it does work out, and I am able to kill him, even though I still die to the bullet hell phase, because I do not like the bullet hell phase. I also make some changes the second time to see if that helps. One of the things I change is I try lightning warp out to see if that maybe feels better, and it does for the boss fight. I do take a lot less hits from the boss fight, but it does not help out bullet hell in the slightest. So as you can see there, I'm trying to get where I'm not being slowed, and it's just still not a great experience. My reaction is just not good enough for that, and hopefully with practice it will get better. So here is round 2, because that was all of my portals off of that one. And so here we are on round 2. And you can see boss fight's going much better. I'm taking a lot less damage. Basically able to avoid all of his attacks now that I have lightning warp, which is fantastic. Incinerator, no problem. I can even play kind of sloppier with lightning warp than I was playing beforehand, which is great. Then comes my favorite part of this boss, which is bullet hell with no movement. It's beautiful. And this kind of worries me from a design perspective, as I would not classify me as a casual player, but I'm definitely more casual than a lot of the top end players are. However, at the time of beating both of these and the first 2 mini bosses, I believe I was in like the 0.1% of the Steam community, which I know not everybody plays through Steam, but it gives you kind of a rough idea of where people are at. And I struggled with this, so I would assume that a lot of people are going to struggle with this. And with me being a little more concerned about the state of the game and the longevity of the game than some other people are, especially with things like Diablo 4 looming in the horizon and PoE 2, I hope there's lessons learned from this, and I hope that this, if they're going to introduce things that don't traditionally go in ARPGs, which are normally not received well by the community, things like lab and such, and some people absolutely like it, it should always be super optional content and not necessarily progression gated content, which this is progression gated content from my personal perspective, because what happens when it's progression gated content like this is there's people that are going to go to this boss fight and just be like, nope, I'm done with this. I have no intention of playing this. And that's kind of the last thing we want when we've had a couple of hiccups in the past with the game. Kind of not the place we want to be. It is a challenging fight, but it's challenging for the wrong reasons and not challenging for the right reasons. And so just kind of something to keep in mind, that it is not challenging for the right reasons. And we want to kind of avoid that. So I think the slow is probably a bit much. We'll see how the community responds with as more people experience this, we'll get more feedback from a larger, more diverse pool of people. Because right now it's really people that just kind of push fairly hard that have experienced this. We'll kind of see what happens and if changes are made. But as you can see, like it is doable. It's just very hard to do with the way movement works in this game now. And we really need instant movement effects, I feel like, if this is the direction they want to go, which I'm actually okay with. I enjoy bullet hell. I just don't enjoy bullet hell with bad movement. So that would be my feedback caveat there. But this boss is definitely doable. You may have to do the same thing I did, which is basically you die through the bullet hell phases, just like I kind of died through the memory game. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at playing Simon Says and dealing with boss mechanics. Just where I'm at as a player. But I hope this is helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I wish you well in killing the Eater of the Worlds and the Searing Exarch. Have a great day, Exiles.